Right, we're rolling. On this podcast, we'll be talking about different areas of business and all things marketing. My name is Dave Doyle.
And I'm Dave Alton. This is Social Antics, another marketing podcast.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Social Antics, another marketing podcast. You're joined by myself, Dave Doyle, and my co-host, Dave Alton. Dave, how's your week?
Not a bad week now, in fairness. Productive for a change.
Productive, it's a big word.
Productive for a wage, for a change.
You know what's on your head anyway.
Yeah, exactly. No project work, it's just interesting. Classic COVID scenario. Good sized retailer doing good business. COVID hit, can't do click and collect, can't do anything. Yep. Looked to digitise, so it was about a 6-month project thereabouts, some kind of start to finish. A bit less, I suppose, maybe 4 months from start to finish, and launched last week. And it actually just showed the importance still of kind of personal branding and that local kind of relationship. Like we said, as I always do, soft launch. Make sure that the website's working grand with the EPOS system.
Throw everyone onto it straight away.
Yeah, make sure that the stock system's in place, operation, everything is sound, and worked a dream. A few grand through the website on day one, and it was all based on the relationship that the owner has with her client base in particular. So no, it was just interesting again. Like, I'm big on, as you know, paid. When people are searching, intent, purchase, awareness, all of that through paid media. And it was one of the few examples that I've seen in recent years where seen real tangible benefit from someone building up an audience over time through kind of vlogs and things like that. So really good week.
And were they not doing any online payments before, or online transactions
over the phone, if you want to call it that? I mean, there was sales coming through the Facebook page, but not via e-commerce, as in people would see something on the Facebook page, ring in, can I put this to one side and I'll come in and whatever. But obviously that went up in smoke then when the pandemic hit.
With or without the pandemic, I just can't picture many people doing that anymore.
Very straight. But no, that's what a huge amount of the sales were. It's a crack because again, it's a women's fashion brand, so you can tell I was vastly out of my depth in terms of what I was doing. But like,
you knew all the words, did you?
I knew all. I was telling you there now when we were doing the descriptions for the website. It was very like, I mean, as opposed to
I'll
like,
take your word first.
I was like, yeah, what's that? It's a green dress. It's a green dress and it doesn't have any arms on it. Was the extent of my kind of knowledge in that regard. But no, it was just interesting to see again a different business models working for different types of organisations, I suppose.
Good stuff. Thanks everyone for listening last week. We had Ray Keogh, content creator, on last week. It was really interesting to hear Ray's take on, I suppose, working with a company working with a content creator, what you should do before you approach, ways of thinking about how to tell your story through video. I just think it was a really, really good chat to get someone like Ray on to talk about video.
That was really good. Like I said last week, creative is the differentiator nowadays when everyone's using the same channels to distribute the content. The content is the differentiator there. So no, having someone like Ray to kind of, again, like, I mean, I think some people get very, very worried when they don't have full ownership over the project, marketers in particular.
Yeah.
Whereas these guys, creative directors, whatever you want to call them, these guys have the eye to tell the story that you're looking to tell, and I think just talking through some of Ray's experiences was hopefully useful for people.
I think it definitely has to get to the stage when you're working with kind of guys like that. It's very much like sit back and watch.
Yeah, let the magic happen.
It's good. I think there was a lot of kind of stuff popped up this week in terms of news. Both of us kind of came with, I suppose, you have a docket book full of stuff there anyway. So
we actually came prepared this week. It was actually impressive. Yeah, usually
hopefully get something out of it.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. The one that I kind of saw this week, and it kind of speaks to something that we spoke about probably before Christmas now at this stage. But in terms of TikTok and the future of social commerce, or the future of e-commerce, whatever way you want to describe it, via that particular platform, because look, we know and we don't need to remind anyone about the kind of explosive growth that TikTok has had recently in terms of users, active users, and retention, and so on and so forth. So the question was always, how are they going to monetize without ruining the platform, basically? And we kind of made a prediction that they were going to make, as opposed to it being more advertising, they try and embed some of the e-commerce functionality with the users, and that's exactly what they basically said that they're going to do. So what they're rolling out at the moment.
We got a prediction right.
We got a prediction right. We get loads of predictions right. We just don't.
I'd have to go back and listen
tell
to that
anyone
podcast.
exactly. That was a good episode, actually. I don't know what it's called.
So what happened?
So basically, what they are going to do is that they're going to allow users to embed links to products within their videos. So if you're doing a dance video or something like that, you can basically tag in the top of the jacket or the runners that you were wearing, or if you're doing a demo of a review of a product or something like that, you can tag in that product, and then it may give you the ability to earn a commission based on the sales from your particular link. So it's kind of reversing the old affiliate marketing model, kind of, in a way. Now, I suppose, to me, this is a better way to sell products via e-commerce, right? Because it's not disrupting that experience. And like we know with TikTok, it's currently so successful because it's so addictive. And if you start putting ads into that experience, it'll stall it a bit.
It's better than a blatant ad, graphic, video, whatever it is. It's people, there's probably going to be a little click section and they view the product.
Yeah, no, exactly. And there's going to be a pop-up there. So now the only thing they've got to watch out for is make sure it's not completely saturated, because then at the moment, people are making content for the sake of the content. Whereas if you have an ability to earn money and monetize as a creator,
it changes the platform.
It changes the platform, and does it become very, very saturated with ads? And does it like at the moment, because not a huge amount of brands are kind of using, let's call them influencers on TikTok. When I'm scrolling through TikTok, I'm still kind of like, oh, these guys are just really, really good creators. There's not a huge amount of paid branding advertising going on there, whereas you do still get that with the likes of Instagram and so on and so forth. So that, to me, increases my enjoyment of the platform. If again people start to change the way that they're behaving or acting, or they start changing the content so it just becomes very, very salesy, then does that saturate the platform with content that you don't want, and does that kind of hurt it a bit? So them rolling it out is going to be very, very important. But like, I'm excited because, look, as a marketer, we've basically been saddled with AdWords, Instagram shopping and Facebook shopping for the last number of years, and it's good to have something new to play with.
I think as you said, like, you already mentioned the fashion brand that you're working with. I think marketers that are in that space are definitely going to be looking at TikTok to probably send out, and look, it's been happening on Instagram for ages. They're going to send out items of clothing and say, look, if next time you're doing your dance wearing this gear, or what next time you're doing, you're cooking at home, whatever the videos are, there is a huge reach on TikTok. It's just quite a kind of a heavy platform in terms of content creation. Like, it's not one for every business, but it's definitely an individual influencer kind of a platform.
No, it's more based on, people don't necessarily follow what I found anyway. They don't follow brands. It's more that they follow topics, and the topic and the actors within those topics tend to find people then via the algorithm. So that's interesting. And then they also said that they're going to create a kind of a live shopping or a live streaming channel, which will be built into TikTok itself. So it's almost digitizing QVC to a certain extent. So it's almost like teleshopping, but on your phone. It sounds interesting. It sounds like innovating something which has been around for years and years. So again, that could be interesting.
I'd be fearful now that it already sounds like, it's a fucking boring platform already.
It's all about the execution.
Yeah.
The big thing here is, for marketers, it might sound very, very sexy, but ultimately it has to work for to work for the user. And just a couple of stats. I got this from the FT. Which I basically read to make me seem smarter than I actually am, is that 40% of TikTok users don't actually have a Facebook account, and 63% of TikTok users don't have a Twitter account. So it really, really shows the kind of change in mindset of your Gen Z consumer.
It's your new users online.
Oh, 100%. And that's like, that would be worrying stat for me if I was the Zuck. Do you know what I mean? People not really interested in that kind of platform. So no, it's gonna be a critical, like we've said for ages, right? There's the whole social media ecosystem is ripe for disruption in terms of monetization. It's just who actually does and who does it right. We spoke about Clubhouse last week,
TikTok. Them coming up in a while, yeah.
So look, it's going to be really, really interesting to see what happens. But that's the first bit of news. So that was interesting.
Speaking about Clubhouse, I may as well go straight into it. So basically, Clubhouse got in a bit of hot water there over the last couple of days. Apparently, hackers got in, and there was a significant data breach basically on Clubhouse. So it's not looking well for this. Like, it's a new platform. It's straight. I didn't hear that actually. No, I think it's only like literally yesterday or even today. But basically, so what happened is that the app got hacked, and third party was streaming audio out of the platform onto third party apps. So, but what is interesting about it is the fact that a lot of people might not know. So that the app's connection to China is very similar to TikTok. Basically, it's rerouted. Everything is based on China systems.
Right.
So we had the issue there with TikTok and Trump and wanting to get rid of it, and not operating in America and all this. So that's basically, if the Chinese government take an interest in Clubhouse, we're going to have the same situation that, is it a data breach? Is it, confidentiality gone? All this kind of stuff. There's a lot of that kind of stuff popping up about Clubhouse. So we only mentioned it last week, should we be on it and stuff like that? And we were talking about it during the week, should we play around with it a bit? I haven't gone near it. I personally don't know too much about it, but
it's good. No, it is. It is. I can see how it can work. I really, really do. It's not like podcasts where you kind of pick and choose things to listen in your own time, and it's like they're the presenters, they're talking, and there's no interaction. Mm-hmm. This is very much discussion groups.
Yeah,
and you can be,
and that's the other problem is a lot. Apparently, from what I read, is a lot of them are live discussion groups.
They're all pretty much all of them are live.
So the problem with that is it can't be monitored. It can't be tracked. Or not that it's tracked, but it can't be monitored. So God knows what they're going to end up talking about, and that's when the government.
Oh, it's live. It's live radio again. It's that scenario, the pitfalls that come with that. Like, do you know what I mean? So, but no, I think it's. Look, I think with all these things, when they start up, there's always people looking at the worst case scenario. What happens if someone comes in and starts shouting and roar? It's probably not going to happen in 99.999% of circumstances. So no, I'm kind of like you. I haven't really looked at the platform probably as much as I should have up until now. But it seems to be generating a huge amount of traction. Like I was reading something earlier on where they're basically saying there might be a very, very quick exit for the shareholders where they could get purchased by someone like a Twitter or something like that.
Yeah, and then it'll be part of their ecosystem then. Like
yeah, and I actually it could work very, very well with Twitter because Twitter is very much more news focused than some of the other social platforms. Having it as a discussion portal, I think that could really, really suit. It could suit the Twitter brand. So no, it's going to be interesting to see how that company develops.
I think though any kind of bad news like that comes out very early days in an app can be off-putting. Now the other side of that is, would that kind of news be off-putting to, say for example, a user audience like TikTok?
No.
Are they reading it? It doesn't.
No.
They don't give a shit. They keep it on it.
I think we're now so. And I'm doing a little bit of research on this myself at the moment with the university, where I'm kind of interested in this idea of consumer surveillance. But it's getting to the point where we now all kind of accept, there's almost surveillance acceptance, where we all know that our data has been captured and we're quite happy to be the product because we're now more educated about how our data is using, or we at least think that we're more educated about our data is using.
Or the week before, about paying for Twitter and having the platforms a bit more secure that way maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it just I think people nowadays are kind of wise enough to realise that look, if you're not paying for something, you're the product. Now, data breaches and stuff like that obviously they're not a good starting point, because you don't want people knowing what you're listening to, Joe, particularly now when you've got people, if they're listening to political podcasts, and if that was released, was that person was listening to that political podcast, like even there during the week or before during the presidential election, I logged into Parler, which is essentially like the right-wing social media network, and I just wanted to see what it was like more than anything else. But I wouldn't want like it popping up that Dave Alton's on bloody Parler, like, do you know what I mean? Like, and he's a subscriber to Breitbart as well, like, do you know what I mean? It's not so again, like privacy issues, I think they're more headlined than the actual impact, but you wouldn't want it happening very often. And as well as that too, like with something like Clubhouse, like there's no credit card details on there. It's email addresses and maybe a bit of activity. It's not a major breach realistically.
Another bit of news that caught my attention, I think it came out yesterday, was, did you realise we have a bit of competition now?
As in the podcast?
The podcast, serious competition.
I'm sure. Who's after freaking...
Previous President Barack Obama and Bruce Springsteen are after partnering up for a special 8 series podcast series. Basically it's in-depth discussion between the two friends. I think it's really interesting to see. It's basically on the back of production... Barack and Michelle Obama's production company, they basically signed an exclusive...
What's it called? Renegade or something?
It's called Renegade,
It's a good name. It's a much better name than Social Antics.
I listened to... I listened to it was that compared to some of the stuff we have is a lot better.
Yeah,
that will never be
mentioned.
mentioned.
That's true too, yeah.
But basically they signed an exclusive deal with Spotify in 2019. So like we obviously have heard about Michelle Obama's podcast being out there. It's been getting featured on the top of Spotify. But I think this is really good. It's really cool artwork. They brought out a trailer for it. I listened to about half of it today. I have to listen to the rest of it, but it's actually a really nice just chat between two guys. It's actually not massively overproduced. It's actually really good, but it's actually what was brilliant if you listen to the first episode. Within the first 10 seconds, he attacks Trump.
Yeah,
it's
to be fair to Obama, and he still got it. Like production value, there's very few people. Like in terms of public speaking, communication, he's just a different. I actually watched something recently enough, and it was an interview with Obama's old speechwriter.
Oh yeah.
And like, okay, the speechwriter obviously needs to take the ideas and communicate them, but like just the stream of thought and the way that he was talking about how Obama understands culturally, economically, he knows his audience and he knows what is gonna trigger certain emotional reactions with that audience depending on what he says. A very, very, very intelligent, incredible communicator.
Between that now and the book and everything he's doing is fantastic. But the reason why I brought that up is following on from that then in terms of Spotify news. Another bit of Spotify news yesterday or today was that they're looking to make podcasts. Spotify obviously they're looking to make podcasts a bigger focus with new tools to translate written content into audio feeds. So basically they're looking at partnering up with WordPress, and they'll actually be turning written blog posts into audio content. So it's just a new form of actually getting content out there. It's interesting to see how they do it. I don't want it to be very much text or text to speech kind of. They'll have to actually get someone probably reading it to make it listenable, I suppose. But this is something they're looking to do. They're looking to partner up with Anchor, which is the podcast hosting platform, and this new way they're going to bring written work out to wider audiences. But another thing they're looking at doing in the coming months is they're going to enable more creators to add videos to their podcast. It's currently available to some like music artists. You can see their music videos or whatever, or just a bit of kind of movement graphics in the background. But they're looking at bringing in a lot more videos. They're going to look at bringing in Q&A features. They're going to look at bringing in polls. So I think they're trying to make Spotify an actual, nearly a social platform. Yeah,
it's all. Spotify at the moment are all about vertical integration, and by that I mean they want to own content. So that's not on Apple Music, it's just on Spotify. Like you saw there with them, is it the Joe Rogan?
I was literally just about to bring it up. So
like
Joe Rogan,
they basically purchased that.
They did they paid over 100 million. Like imagine, I'm waiting for our phone call.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure since they announced that their stock price gone up like 80%.
Oh, not surprising. So they've done an exclusive deal so far. The big ones are you have Michelle Obama, you have Joe Rogan, and you had Kim Kardashian around the same time as Joe Rogan. Obviously, all up there in the same caliber.
There's a spread there, isn't there? Former President of the United States,
Vice President or First Lady. Soon to be possibly first.
Yeah.
But basically, he was paid over 100 million for exclusivity. But if you go and look at his channel, which I actually found myself during the week actually watching a few of the videos. I've seen them before, but I was watching them on Spotify because he has the videos embedded in his one. So all the old content is there, all the old
it's a nicer view. Even something small, and look, I'm using an older iPhone, but like even something small that if I'm listening to something on Spotify and I come out of it, it keeps on playing. If I'm doing that on YouTube, it cuts
that rips
it.
Me head,
and it's actually very, very frustrating if you just want to just check Twitter or whatever the case may be. It doesn't allow you to kind of double job, if that makes any sense. Little things like that Spotify have just got right.
And that's the reason why I wasn't massively interested in even looking at the YouTube Premium, to be able to come out of the screen and all that. But now that I pay for Spotify, now that the fact that, as you say, I can do that, I can come out of the platform, still listen. It's not going to interrupt what I'm listening to. Spotify are winning it for me in terms of the audio listening.
Yeah, and it's going to open up again.
Like, would you use I use Android, you use Apple. Would you use Apple Music at all? Like, would you listen to anything? No. You just use purely Spotify.
Yeah,
is it?
I don't have any. I've tried it. I tried it, I think, in the early days of it, and I didn't like it. Whereas Spotify was just simple. Yeah, I just liked it. But from a marketing perspective, I think it's interesting as well. So I actually gave this example in class a number of weeks ago. We're talking about how marketers need to just reorientate how they think about reaching audiences within kind of attention economy and things like that. And I gave two examples of ads which had which were good ads in terms of they had all of the cultural codes, the right messaging and all the rest. So really, really good ads. One of them was built for television, and then there was the ad that Coca-Cola made a number of years ago with them, where they partnered with Avicii, which was the Taste the Feeling song.
Yeah.
And it showed the direct difference between the two. One of them was just an ad, whereas the other one was the exact same ad, but they partnered with someone like Avicii, and then they're basically getting free advertising every time someone watches that video on Spotify. Like, no one's going to search for a Coca-Cola ad, but they'll search for an Avicii song, and then they get the association via the song in and of itself. So I think that the concept that we use for in academic terms is this idea of kind of transmedia marketing, where you kind of embed messages without realizing that you're embedding messages across multiple different devices and multiple different viewing behaviors of the consumer and so on and so forth. So I think those kind of things, like embedding the video into Spotify and the increase in vertical integration in terms of them producing their own content, or at least getting exclusivity on content, could make them a really, really interesting marketing tool going
even
forward.
For like what we do here, like, you know, we tossed with the idea, not that we want to fucking see ourselves on camera, but we tossed the idea of doing the video.
We wouldn't do that.
We tossed the idea of doing video, you know, and doing the stuff on YouTube, and we stuck with just podcasts because it was easier. But like now, if we look at, we can still do the video thing, we can do the audio thing, and it's all on Spotify. It's another avenue that might be of interest to people. Like, you know, they kind of say audio is taken over, but the fact now Spotify is still offering both with uninterrupted media, you know, you're getting the ball. I think it's just fantastic. Like, so I think that's going to really, really skyrocket them to another level of people wanting to use them.
Yeah, no, interesting. And now that you're actually after speaking about subscription services and
I done a good link, did I?
You did it accidentally, but yeah, you did somehow or another. Disney Plus today in the UK and Ireland launched Star Plus, which is their entertainment brand, which is, I think it's a real game changer in terms of Disney really going to start to, like, they're already obviously competing with the likes of Netflix and Prime, but this gives them a completely new audience, I think, to go after. And I think it's going to be really, really interesting to see how the streaming wars goes over the next number of months.
So what is the difference between Star Plus and Disney Plus?
So basically, Disney Plus has your obviously your Disney, your classic Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, National Geographic, and then Star Plus is basically a category within that, which, for want of a better word, is kind of classic movies and series. So Scandal is in there, 24, the Jack Bauer series, other, I don't know what other films.
So like
in there.
Stuff that's not necessarily actually owned by Disney or Pixar.
Correct. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's more generic, shall we say?
So they're really going after Netflix and Amazon.
So they basically today now any subscriber to Disney Plus basically has access to, I think it was over 75 new series and 300 movies, and there's 4 original productions built into that as well. So you can see how they did. To be fair, they did need to expand the content. Like, I got Disney Plus when it came out, but I found myself going to Disney Plus for very, very specific things. So Mandalorian, for example, Star Wars, whatever the story. Yeah, exactly. So, but I wouldn't, if I was sitting at home and I wanted to binge.
Yeah.
I would go to Prime, or I would go to Netflix. Whereas now I would be more inclined to actually start gravitating over to Disney Plus to see what's actually on there, do you know?
What I found was interesting they done during the week is they actually started, or maybe it was last week, they started advertising the new Marvel video, or the Marvel film, but they're advertising it as a trailer within Disney Plus.
Yeah.
But it's not till next year. So what I think they're going to do is they're going to release it purely on Disney Plus. But obviously, what's going to happen now is everyone's going to sign up to Disney Plus just to watch the film.
I think it's a genius play. It's genius because it's the one thing that Netflix and Prime don't have. They have original content, but they don't have any of the big brand names like the Marvels,
nothing
the MCU,
to drag you in.
Star Wars. There's others as well, I'm sure, that they have. And they've got ESPN as well.
Yeah.
So, like, if you can combine exclusive original content with the big blockbuster films, and you can get live sports in there as well, which they'll have with ESPN, then all of a sudden you can see Disney being kind of viewed as this kind of kiddie, kind of a child platform, into being, no, this is a serious player now within the marketplace.
Well, it's going to totally disrupt cinemas. It's going to totally, like, I think that all these channels will start taking more and more films out of the cinema. Like, you know, you're not going to have those big blockbuster records anymore. You're not going to have the big numbers seeing the film. So I just think it's it's a clever way basically to get people onto your platforms.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. Like I think when we come out of this, people are going to crave experiences, so therefore you are going to see a massive spike in cinema tickets and so on and so forth. But I think over time we've seen cinema attendances decline anyway, and this is just another way that that's going to happen. But you can imagine, like, if you even think Star Wars, for example, when that was released last year, could Disney have legitimately charged, even if you had the subscription, could you legitimately charge 50 quid a household to get Star Wars 24, 48 hours before everyone else? Absolutely you could, and you would have gotten that money as well. Now, on top of that then, and speaking of experiences, obviously Disney also have access to your theme parks, your holidays, all this type of stuff as well. So if you're a Disney Plus subscriber, and I read this in, I think it might have been the FT again actually, a number of weeks ago, could you have a scenario where, okay, you're a Disney Plus subscriber, does that also mean that you get first dibs when there's a new Harry Potter land opens up in Orlando, Florida, or in Euro Disney, or whatever the case is? So there's so many opportunities here for them to expand this kind of subscriber model to get people hooked into not just their films, but some of their other core product offerings as well, basically.
Was there anything else that popped up for you this week?
There was something that annoyed me for a change.
That's not a change.
No, that's not a change, to be fair. So I was coming across, to be fair, you actually sent on to this to me, and it was an article by Anna Lewis, and the headline of the article was Cadbury forced to release a statement after 25,000 people sign a petition to ban cream egg advert. Now, whenever I hear ban advert, I'm going, oh, brilliant, what did they do now? And there's something exciting to talk about. This was actually the complete opposite. Basically, yeah, so I'll read the first few paragraphs of the article. Earlier this year, Cadbury released an advert to celebrate the cream eggs golden goobly. God help us.
I like it.
Oh, you would, wouldn't you? For God's sake. AKA our favourite fondant stuffed eggs 50th birthday. The advert showcased a number of different ways to enjoy cream eggs. You can lick them, bake with them, dip them and share them, but unfortunately the final option has offended a number of people and a petition has been launched to ban the advert. In the advert, God forbid, real-life couple Callum Sterling and Dale Moran, I have no idea who these people are, share a cream egg by both biting it at the same time, but because Callum and Dale are gay, 25,000 people have decided the advert should be banned. 25,000 people took time out of their day to complain about two fellas lobbing the gob on each other. And I have to say, the ad actually isn't that great, but that's not the point here at all.
Cadbury's tried their best.
You'd swear by the way people were going on that they were mauling the face off each other. All they were doing was Lady in the Tramp style with a cream egg. That's essentially what it was.
I don't agree with that. Cadbury's or cream egg should not be shared. Like, I'm partial to a cream egg now myself.
I was wondering where you were going there. I was like, oh, this is going to get
interesting.
There'll be another petition launched to take us off the air. But no, I mean, seriously, people just need to cop on and grow up.
We've talked about it here
Christ.
before about, advertising and the way or not advertising, but branding having to be changed because of, people finding offence to it. We talked about Uncle Ben's in one of the first episodes.
But everyone is offended by everything. If you are talking to an audience of 10 people or 1,000 people, someone is going to be offended by something, and this isn't something that you should be allowed to be offended by. It's absolutely and like, what I would have loved is if Cadbury's came out and just released a press release and goes, lads, would you ever go fuck yourselves, basically? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, just like, because then there's the problem is then because then
they deleted it. I don't think they have. Like, in fairness,
no, they haven't taken it down, but they released a statement and it was it probably went through legal and it went through whatever. I haven't actually seen. I haven't actually read the statement.
Some poor PR fella shitting himself.
Oh, basically, what do I have to do now? Like, do you know what I mean? But no, I was absolutely. And then on the other side, then there was another argument there that's saying that there was also members of the LGBT community were giving out because it was the over-sexualization of individuals. Okay. And I was kind of going, and they were basically saying, oh, this wouldn't happen if it was a straight couple. And I was like, have you watched a Lynx ad recently? That's all they are. Scantily clad women falling from the sky dressed as angels. Yeah. That's essentially what Lynx ads are. So no, it was just one of those where I read the story and I was like, for so many reasons, this shows once again that people are just fucking stupid. Like, do you know what I mean? It's just, just
not everyone, just 25,000.
Just 25,000 people who took time out of their clearly very, very busy schedules to complain about this, like, you know. But yeah.
No, I hope they don't take it down. I hope they stick to their guns.
They won't. They shouldn't take it down, for fuck's sake. No, they should change. The ad isn't great. Like, it's not a great ad in and of itself. Not for that reason. Just in general, it wasn't a great ad. I was looking at it, I was kind of going, where is this going, kind of a thing. Then I was like, oh yeah, grand, yeah. It's not a very good ad, but there's still no reason to get out about it.
Another bit of news that popped up for me this week was basically after the Capitol siege over in America, Google put a ban in place of all political advertising. They've announced this.
That's two wild extremes there.
Yeah. The 25,000 people that done that were probably the people that done this.
They probably they wanted the votes back. Oh, for God's sake.
But basically, basically Google has begun letting advertisers know that it's lifting the ban on political ads in the US, which it implemented last month because of the Capitol siege, basically. So we're going to start seeing that kind of political advertising coming back in again. Like, you know, but look, I think no matter how much you ban the physical advertising, political movements happen, and political advertising happens whether it's organic or paid. It happens, you know, no matter what bans you put in place.
It does, but it's when we've like political movements happen, but obviously these platforms are a vehicle to amplify lies, hate, spin, propaganda. So like there has to be some controls there. We've got we won't rage over this again because people are probably bored of us giving out about Trump and right-wingers and all this.
You can find us on Spotify, on Apple, and Amazon,
and all other good social media podcast platforms.
What has popped up for you this week?
An interesting one. So we've mentioned it previously that actually related in relation to the political advertising and stuff like that as well. We basically said, look, you can't really trust platforms or big tech to make any of the right decisions for society because they're predominantly they're of all the stakeholders that they care about, the shareholders are their primary stakeholder, who they are interested in, rightly or wrongly, and often that is to the detriment of society. And again, rightly or wrongly, we're living in a capitalist society, whatever, make your own argument there. But we kind of made the point that it has to be political institutions that basically force these companies to behave in a certain way. Otherwise, they are not going to change because there's no reason for them to change effectively. And as long as they can keep on increasing shareholder value, ultimately, why would they change? If you're again looking at something from a kind of a dogmatic, capitalistic market revenue generating lens. So the Supreme Court in the UK yesterday basically ruled that Uber drivers are now entitled to workers' rights, including receipt of the classified minimum wage, which changes Uber drivers from being classified as gig workers or contractors to actual being employees, which is okay. It doesn't change anything because this court case was just in relation to 25, I think it was, ex-Uber drivers, so the court case only applies to them, but it sets a precedent going forward if there is any changes to law or if there is any other drivers that want to take a case. The precedent has now been set that no, you are entitled to workers' rights and minimum wage and stuff like that. Uber came out and basically doubled down, saying this is not applying to the rest of our contractors. They're contractors, they choose to be contractors. And since then we've also improved our benefits, like we've given people insurance. You know, like if you're driving around on a bike, you could probably do with a bit of insurance kind of a thing, like, you know. So Uber are doubling down and they're saying, and it makes sense for them to do this, look, their business model is entirely predicated off algorithmic management, whereby your demand is directly matched by the supply of labour being a massive cost of businesses. So therefore it's a way to supplement that, not to supplement it, but to match that directly with the demand for from the consumer. So like if this comes in as a law either in the UK or elsewhere, it's going to completely decimate like the Deliveroos, the Uber Eats, the Ubers of this world. That whole business model is completely crippled if this is applied to all of those workers. So it's going to be interesting to see how that develops over the next kind of couple of months. It's going to really change. Like a lot of these companies have been setting up on that model. You know, even new companies. You know, we've like. It's not directly related, but the likes of even your Airbnbs and all these kind of crowds, they're sharing economy kind of
they're all this gig economy, sharing economy, all this kind of stuff. If there's a fear that the law and the legislation is going to change, a lot of these companies won't set up because the risks are back involved, the labour is back involved, the workforce is back involved. So it's totally going to change that whole model.
There's now a new financial, and even beyond that. Look, like I've been on the board directors of a number of companies, and like one thing that I hate doing is HR. I hate it. Like HR exists to protect the organisation, not to protect the employee, which is a fallacy that everyone thinks, oh, I'll go to HR and talk to them about my problems. Yeah. Do not go to HR. Exactly, yeah. But you can imagine, again, even with a workforce that size and having kind of contracts and certain legal stipulations, and then you've got minimum hour issues, you've got if someone is working with you for a certain amount of time, does that mean that they've got permanency? All of these issues kind of come to the fore if this is actually kind of ruled into law for the mass. And now again, it's only 25 workers at the moment, ex-workers, so this isn't like cardinal law or anything like that yet, but it shows the mindset, I suppose, of some of the institutions of state, not my state now, the UK state, but the in terms of where their thought process is in terms of these kind of gig economy organisations, shall we say. And look, I think something does have to be done. Like even we saw there in across Dublin a number of weeks ago, there was a huge issue with drivers being attacked by youths, teenagers and stuff like that. Like these guys are working in tough conditions, you know what I mean? And I think whatever about the pay that you're getting and you choose to work the flexible hours and stuff like that, the least you deserve are some basic human employee protections that the rest of us are afforded, basically, you know. So look, it's going to be interesting. I think it's a good thing. Hopefully it's expanded, but it's going to be interesting without really analysing the economic impact on the organisations. Most of these organisations are making a loss anyway. It's going to be interesting to see how this develops.
Another bit of news that popped up for me this week is, we've both worked on apps together.
We have, yeah.
We've worked on apps together, whereas the marketing side or development side, I know you're working on one at the moment.
Yeah.
It's not the easiest path to success, I suppose.
Dog eat world, simple as that. You're made, like I find, and it's incredible. So with normal companies, shall we say, but if there is such thing as a normal company, you have a product, rapid in branding, and like the majority of your kind of costs go into stock management, infrastructure, all that kind of stuff. When you're looking for people to download an app and keeping it, there are so many moving parts, because people might go back to a business a second time. If you download an app and delete it, you will not go back to that app again. So having everything absolutely right, from a tech, security, we mentioned Clubhouse earlier on,
you've one chance at
product offering, the hook, the trigger, all of these different things that we look at when we're looking to build a kind of an app ecosystem, shall we say, makes it an incredibly challenging. It became
the kind of trend there for a while. I went to the news piece there, but it became a kind of trend there for a while that we get an app. Every business wanted an app.
Everything. And there was no business model behind it. No. It was always an idea for the end consumer, as opposed to thinking for a quick second, how do we actually monetize this goddamn thing?
I think there's fantastic platforms. Like I was only actually speaking there during the week to the guy I go to, the personal training. Like, he's kind of setting up all his back end stuff at the moment, just getting ready for when we come out of lockdown again. But he's on this app called My PT Hub, basically, right?
Yeah.
But you can pay for a further level up that gives you your own platform, so many users on it. It's a direct communication platform. You're updating your metrics. But the other side of it is he can upload his branding into it, and now you have his icon and his name on your phone as an app. These kind of personalized apps are great.
Labeling the app, yeah. No, there's actually an ex-student of mine, Ryan, who set up a company called Legitfit. I think they're going for funding series. They're going for funding at the moment, and the same kind of concept and same kind of idea. But again, what I kind of thought was good about that is that I remember speaking to Ryan about this years ago. Now he's probably out of college now, 3 years at this stage.
That's kind of like, it's almost like a booking system, isn't it, for gyms?
It's a booking system, but similar to what you said there, it gives you access to a particular. So it's part marketplace, but then part kind of trainer management. Now I don't use a personal trainer. He may have completely changed the app since, but my understanding of it was it gave you that dual focus of you have your own hub, but then also access to a kind of a marketplace. And what I liked about that from the start is that he came from that background, so he actually understood the challenges as opposed to this abstract idea of, oh, this will be useful for people without actually doing the research.
But those kind of apps work, right? Those kind of individual apps for an individual business. Whereas if you go down the street and you have 10 food apps, order the food through my app, next thing you have 10 different restaurant apps. No, I have Deliveroo, I have Just Eat, I have all these, fuck off and leave me alone, right? They don't work, I think. And you know,
and Bamba.
Bamba, that's your one.
We haven't launched it yet.
Plug there for Bamba.
Yeah.
But I'm sure we'll do a whole episode on Bamba.
Yeah, once we're actually allowed operate properly, because in case people haven't noticed, we're in lockdown at the moment. So
there's no order and drink.
Yeah, exactly. So but
the reason why I brought this one up was another self-made billionaire happened during the week. You know, another one.
Was it you?
What? It wasn't me. No. I'd be sitting here talking to you if I was a self-made billionaire.
Yeah.
Basically, Bumble, another dating platform, basically. But Whitney Wolfhard is her name. She's a self-made female billionaire after this week. She's aged 31 and she is now worth about 1.5 billion after that.
My God, what would you do 1.5 billion?
Imagine just looking in and seeing that in the bank.
Seeing it in your Revolut account.
You'd be afraid to go buy a bar of chocolate, like, you know.
I would spend my money.
But basically, at 20, she started her first business selling tote bags from bamboo, and you know, she was involved in loads of clothing brands, fashion lines, building her way up. She at 22, she joined Hatch Labs, which, as we know, was a kind of a startup incubator, a fairly well-known one, and quickly led to her transition to kind of development team for this little-known app called Tinder. Basically, she was on the initial development stages of Tinder.
Okay.
2 years later, it didn't go too well when she left the company. It was basically through a difficult time she had there. It was publicly brought a lawsuit against them. Atrocious sexual harassment and sex discrimination. Sex discrimination was basically what the court was.
It's not a great look for a dating app, really, is it?
It's not really, no. And what was worse was it was against her former boss and ex-boyfriend as well at the time. So
of course.
It wasn't great. So, but basically,
and on this week's episode of EastEnders.
But I actually never heard of this until I read all this. But basically, the company, of course, denied the accusation. They settled out of court. She received about 1 million and decided then to go and set up a new venture. And she bought this Bumble of another person. She didn't come up with the initial idea. It was actually by a Russian billionaire. He set up Badoo, which is another kind of dating site. And basically, she took over the helm of Bumble and eventually, you know, bought it out. They also own a thing called Bumble Biz and Bumble BFF. Basically, it's a kind of career change kind of thing, and meet collaborators and meet mentors and all that kind of stuff. But basically, yeah, this week she decided to put it up publicly, up on the IPO, and I think you found out that it was about 8 billion?
8 billion, yeah. I think they wanted to initially IPO at, was it $23, and they ended up IPOing at 43 or something like that. It was yeah. They I think they doubled the amount of capital they wanted to raise, but I don't have the exact figures in front of me. It was something like that.
Well, anyway, according to Bloomberg, now out of the 500 wealthiest people in the world, few of them are 5% self-made women, but she's up there now basically. And as I said already, she's an estimated worth 1.5 billion.
Fair play to her. Look, it's a good news story, I suppose. Yeah. And I think as well, what I think is very, very interesting there is, probably through her own, and we can talk about, I'm a demon for in terms of data and research and all this type of stuff, but that was clearly kind of born almost out of her own, for want of a better phrase, personal experience, shall we say, in terms of the culture of Tinder. And then for her to bring it into, and Bumble is where the female has to
the female has to basically interact first, like, and say yes or no, get away from me, kind of, you're a creep and stop stalking me, that kind of an attitude. So yeah, she totally changed the model and she made it totally around empowering women. Kind of that was the basis of the app. So yeah, look, in fairness, it's, you know, it's obviously is a great brand, you know, strong branding with it as well, and obviously worth an absolute fortune now. So she can retire happy.
No, it's an interesting, and again, it's amazing taking an app concept like Tinder and just tweaking it ever so slightly, and all of a sudden you open yourself up to an entirely new market. Those dating, I was actually looking, there was a report came from Hootsuite actually during the week, which I haven't had time to digest
is that
properly.
The digital report?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And it was actually looking at, and I think Tinder was very high on that list actually in terms of monetization for an app. And you've got other apps like that coming out as well recently doing quite well. Hinge, Bumble obviously doing very, very well. So it's
what's funny
it's
is
an ecosystem that I haven't really
they're doing well in an environment that we can't date. Like, you know, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Anyone within 5 kilometers too close.
Too close. Have you been quarantined?
I've been quarantined. No, yeah. Have you? Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
It's like a questionnaire now, instead of swiping. But my favourite news story this week, I
You
think...
can disinfect yourself there, would you?
That's enough of that now before you get yourself in trouble. My favourite news article this week was, I spotted actually in the Irish Times today, was Elon Musk satellites to beam high-speed broadband to Kerry Valley. The Black Valley in Kerry.
Sure, where else would a multi-richest man in the world want to contribute
set on
towards,
Kerry.
like? He's coming for the Healy rays.
That's what I'd say, they have their finger in this somewhere,
Yeah.
I'd say like that. But basically, he's putting satellites up, and this place hasn't, they didn't see the arrival of electricity until the 1970s apparently, but now they're en route to getting high-speed satellite broadband. But what was interesting I found was nearly a third of all Kerry homes and businesses do not have quality broadband service of any kind at the moment, but the national broadband plan in Ireland that's being rolled out is going to take about 7 years to roll out.
Same as the vaccines.
Same as the vaccines. But you think about what's going to happen in the next 7 years in terms of broadband. I think it's going to be far outdated by the time they roll that out.
No, I know.
If
It's
Elon
always
Musk has done this in a couple of years, it's way too. We're just way behind in terms of
like
broadband.
it is. Look, I worked in telecommunications for a bit. It is quite a complicated thing, but the timelines here, like, ultimately this comes down to cost benefit. Like X amount of the percentage of the population, fine, but like in Kerry, for our international listeners, you could have, in a several acre radius, you could have very, very few people, and then you have to build a huge infrastructure to facilitate those people. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be doing it, but you can see the complications that arise as a result of it.
I think they seriously have to rethink it now because of COVID. It's made everyone work at home, so people are not congregating to the big cities like Cork, Galway, Limerick, whatever it is.
COVID has been a great equaliser in terms of kind of exposing some of the inequalities or injustices in society, as far as I'm concerned. Like, I mean, if you even take if you take kids now, for example, who are all being homeschooled at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a family who's living in a decent, say, suburban house, all the kids have a laptop each, good broadband, all the rest of it, those kids have a pretty good education, relative to what's going on in the world at the moment. If you're in a house where you might be sharing, or kids might have to use their phones, or you've only got one computer, maybe you're in an area with bad broadband, a lot of those kids probably haven't been receiving any education, or at least it's a very, very substandard one since COVID hit, basically. So again, those kind of inequalities tend to expose themselves when you have something like a pandemic happening, where, like, I mean, what you earn is very much like if you, even I give the example, if you're living out in the countryside in a big house and you've got your own home office and your own little entertainment system and all the rest of it, like, you've had a pretty decent living during this COVID lockdown. Okay, you're frustrated and all that stuff, but ultimately it's still a decent living. If you're living in an apartment with 4 other people and you're all on top of each other, or you're a family and you're all in whatever a house and you're all sharing computers and laptop, that's a nightmare scenario. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm very lucky in terms of my living arrangements around this, because if I was in a space where it was noisy, bustling, couldn't get broadband, I'd go fucking ballistic. I'd have gone, like, I'm lecturing. I can't lecture if I'm in Kerry and Elon Musk hasn't installed the satellites yet.
Dial up is not going for you.
MS Teams can barely cope with me as it is. Never mind anything else, like, So no, I think, look, it's, again, I don't know a huge amount. I don't know a huge amount about what Mr. Musk is doing, but
I'm sure, as you said, I'm sure the Healy Rays will be talking about him in the Dáil next week, saying how a great man he is looking after the parish.
Himself and John Delaney, one cut from the same cloth.
Right, well, I think that's all the news that we have for this week, is it?
There's a lot. We covered a lot there. Yeah. There was almost too much. How long is the episode so far? It depends on the music and stuff like that, but we're after getting over the 45 minutes. Well, that's not bad. That's alright.
Keep people listening for a little bit.
That's about right, I think.
That's enough of us anyway for this week. So thanks very much, everyone, for listening. Follow us on social, keep up to date, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Talk to you later.